I want to give the time to Danielle, but first I'm going to read her bio for this video. So Danielle's presentation is on crime prevention and personal safety. She holds a BA degree from Weber State University's Criminal Justice Program. She currently is on the board of directors as a commissioner for UServe Utah. She also serves as a member of the WSU Social and Behavioral Science Advancement Board and Wildcat Club Board of Directors. She is the past president of the WSU Alumni Association Board of Directors. She is a graduate of the Federal Bureau of Investigation Academy in Quantico, and she has close to a 30-year career in law enforcement and currently works at the South Salt Lake Police Department as a public information officer. Past positions include serving as the administrative officer for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Salt Lake Field Office, and as a retired police captain from the Ogden City Police Department. She has been active in the community, serving on the Utah Domestic Violence Advisory Council, as well as the Weber Morgan Domestic Violence Coalition. She is passionate about family and individual safety issues such as child abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking. She is an advocate for legislation and programs to protect the vulnerable. She and her husband have 4 children and 3 grandsons with a granddaughter on the way. She enjoys skiing, hiking, river rafting, reading, and spending time with her family. Danielle, we're so excited to have you, and that was probably one of the most impressive files I've read.
So this is really where my experience is. Some of these topics, if they trigger something, that is not my intent to cause undue trauma or friction with you. If you want to talk offline, I'm available also. Because of the time, we are going to kind of skim through some of these. But if there's anything more that you want more details on, or you have questions, you can call me. I can give you my number. I'm just going to put it in the chat. I am more than willing to talk about any of these types of things offline if you feel more comfortable about it. If you have any questions during this and you're like, whoa, just unmute yourself, ask, and we'll go from there. So my time when I worked with Ogden Police Department, I worked as a detective, and I spent a lot of years working in domestic violence cases. And with that, I had an overflow of sexual assault. Are you seeing any of these, the stats?
Yes.
The notes are coming up.
Yeah, I don't know what's. Is that better?
Yes.
That's perfect.
Okay. So this is just some really simple, basic information that's out there on victimization surveys. We have a Victims' Rights Council in Utah that works on these issues. If you are a victim of a crime and you don't feel your needs are being met through either the police department or the courts, or even with your perpetrator that may be incarcerated, there is a victims' right group that reviews these cases and gives recommendations on how to better what we're doing and how to kind of put some best practices together. In that, these are always staggering stats for me when I'm working with victims. You look at it that most of us feel safe in our communities. Most of us don't have these concerns really. But we are looking at it. We're basically the gender that gets sexually assaulted, and kind of taken advantage of in most of these criminal settings. Again, you can see what those are, the definitions. This stat always is interesting, is 1 in 4. That's pretty heartbreaking. You look at there's 11 of us, so at least 3 of us have been sexually assaulted or been a victim of some type of sexual harassment, sexual assault. This really focuses on sexual violence, but I'm sure if I asked, everyone is probably could raise their hands and say, if I asked, has anybody been sexually assaulted or sexually harassed at work in their workplace, hands would probably go up.
Hey, Danielle, let me make sure everyone make sure you're muted. I hear some people having a phone conversation. Thanks.
Gary, it might be me because I'm in the office and it probably is the radio, the dispatch screen, dispatch radio.
Okay.
So in this, when I look at the statistics and look down into the numbers just with Utah has an average of 2 reported rapes. That's just 2 reported rapes. That's not including the national study. It's probably a little bit, I think we've done a really good job over the last decade, maybe even the last 2 decades, in really trying to get funding for the CODAR kits and better forensic nurses to do the evaluations and better trained investigators. And so I do think there is an increase in reporting versus that 84%. That's an older stat, but I think there's been a big push, at least I know in Utah, the last 10 years, a really big awareness, really more specialized training for your investigators, for your first responders, and how to investigate and support victims of sexual assaults. Again, if you've been a victim of this is not your fault. There's factors or things that I would suggest as a crime prevention measure in that. When we look at these stats, most of the sexual assaults. Now, granted, I worked a case with Jason Brett Higgins where his father was a serial rapist and he was a serial rapist. And we looked at that case. We did a sting operation where I was the decoy. And some of the things that came out of that on a stranger sexual assault is some of the things that I would just walk and they had a profiler, they had an FBI profiler work with me. And he's like, you can't walk like a cop. You can't assert yourself like a cop. You can't be aware of your surroundings. And I'm like, well, tell me more on that. Cause I'm like, how do I change how I've been trained? Right. And so we worked with the FBI and they had like a profiler. We mapped out the route of where multiple sexual assaults had occurred. And they had me walk the route in the evening hours as a decoy to see if I would get assaulted. But in that, they were like, look down, don't look around, don't pay attention to the roadway, don't pay attention to the cars, act like you're doing something that's distracting so you don't look like you know what's going on and what's going on around you. And I thought that was always interesting when we talk about strategies for preventions. These are all things when you're in a dating relationship, right? But when you're out in the community and you're out walking around, stranger abductions are rare. They happen, but they seem to be more sensationalized. And so I think those are the ones that cause us the most fear. Really, the ones that should cause us the most fear are the acquaintance rapes or the acquaintance assaults. And I'm not just talking like sexual assaults. There's stuff with dating violence. There's even more and more things when we look at the internet and cases that are happening just locally. I mean, you look at the dating apps and where you have people, young adults, young people meeting or going with older male counterparts that they've been I don't want to say groomed, but maybe they've been enticed to leave. We just had that Amber Alert recently within this last week or two where the 14-year-old was located unharmed, but she willingly left. At 14, you really don't have that willing, that's the threshold, right, on your 14-year-old. But she left with the 20-year-old and ended up located in Texas. You have the Snow College student that left the dorms and was located a couple weeks after the fact, and she had been in captivity and sexually assaulted multiple times. So these are, when we're looking at things, I want you to look at, not that, but putting your trust in new acquaintances and what types of things you need to do to protect yourself. Don't assume it can't happen to you, or don't assume that this is such a nice guy. Oh, this we match up on Tinder or whatever app for dating. I always talk about this because there's so many things out there in our community, and so many things out there in the media, so many things out there. And I can give you some crime prevention tips, but at the end of the day, that is a perpetrator's actions that cause this to occur. I'm not sure why this isn't moving. These are the things I would say that you can, when I did that decoy work, these were things that they looked at. Don't be aware of your surroundings. Don't carry yourself with confidence. Take the shortcut, cut through the back alley, cut through the grass, cut through the shortcuts, travel where it was dark, right? Walk on the sidewalk, but walk, closer to the road, not further in. And so those types of things. So when you look at that, be aware of your surroundings. We always talk about 180, 360, 180 around and 360. Look above, look on the sides, look, you're looking left and right when you're doing a crosswalk, but we always talk about looking up also, because we forget that. We are consumed with our phones. We all take our phones with us everywhere. Keep your hands as free as possible. What stores are open? Where are you at? If you think you have that gut feeling or that gut instinct, I always say honor that. That is your body telling you right off the bat that there's something not right, and that you just need to honor it, right? And I think for women, we are taught that we need to be nice, we need to be accommodating, we don't want to come off as bitchy or rude or not compassionate, whatever, and we don't want to hurt people's feelings. And so somebody that makes you feel uncomfortable is in your space or acts like they want to help you and they don't. We just need to honor that. Okay. Some of the things, like if you're at the mall, park underneath the lights. At the grocery store, park underneath the lights. If you're by yourself and you're concerned about something, walk out with other people. Don't just go out by yourself. I always like to say, if you're going out to your car, have your keys ready. Put your phone away, put your stuff away, and walk out with other people, but make sure you're ready to start your next thing you're going to, and whatever that may be. There's two thoughts on carrying your purse near your body or not around your neck. If you travel, a lot of countries have pickpocketers. And so they do tell you to put your purse around your neck and carry it. And in that way, to prevent that. The other thing, though, is if somebody tries to take it, it does, we've seen one or two things. I think that's your choice, what you feel you're more comfortable with. And what you want to do. We have had people that have had their purses, they've had almost like a rope burn with the handle from their purses. So we just say, just carry it. And then again, if it's property, let them have your property. Take it. We can call the banks. We can get your credit cards reissued. We can look at some of those things. If it's your property, I'm always saying, let them take it. If it's your jewelry, let them take it. And then throw it one way and run another way. Run into other people, run to where there's lights, where there's open businesses, run into an open business, those types of things. We talk about some of that things. The reason I bring up high heels is they are so cute and they are so fun. But if there is something that is just not right and you have that gut instinct, I'd say kick them off and run if you need to, because you're not as stable. And there was a study done on women that had been abducted, And if they're unable to safely or securely walk in their heels, that's one thing that perpetrators looked at. And that's a funny thing to think, like, okay, which social scientist decided or to look into that? But heels was a thing that happened, that they discussed. Obviously, we're talking about keeping your doors locked in your cars. We get vehicle thefts and vehicle burglaries in the area. And we have several cases where perpetrators just walk down the street and just check the doors. And if the doors are unlocked, they'll rummage through it, take the valuables that are inside. Even just keeping your doors locked can keep it a deterrent. I always say park in well-lit areas. Don't park in the dark alleys. Again, we talked about having your keys, check your back seat. Checking the back seat is an interesting one because that's a movie thing, right? But it does happen if you're being compromised in that, in your vehicle. We talk about never pick up hitchhikers. This is a what if. I always say play the what if game. I'm not sure if you are not mentally prepared to go this route, that this is your best option, but this is an option, right? We have kind of three responses when we are faced with critical incidences that are traumatizing to us. You either fight, you can flee, or you'll freeze. And so you kind of got to think, when you're looking at those types of things, could you really do this, right? Can you intentionally do this and brace yourself and do that? Or you might be injured too, and it may not be, but an injury may get the cops there. Cops come to personal injury accidents. A lot of people call in on calls. On accidents like this. And so this is just something, a what if, playing the what if game in your head. What action would you take? Home burglaries, 3,000 home burglaries each day, about every 30 seconds. So how do you prevent your stuff that's inside your home so it doesn't get taken outside of your home? Obviously, we have a business watch and a neighborhood watch officer here at South Salt Lake, and they both focus with businesses and homes what's called CPTED, which it means crime prevention through environmental design. And they're willing to come out to a business or to a home and do an assessment and say, you know what, you probably should trim these bushes back, or you probably need to make sure your front light, and especially with like the new light bulbs, they last a long time. They're low watt, they're low energy use, and so you can keep those for a lot of years. We gave those out last year at our neighborhood watch against our National Night Out Against Crime. We did those so we could try and encourage people to turn their porch lights on at night. Go back to that. Obviously, we talk about don't leaving a key. If you're going to leave keys too, pick a trusted person or a trusted neighbor. We also have a lot of package thefts. Packages, Amazon deliveries, UPS, they're being left on front porches. Yes, they're taking pictures and saying, hey, we've delivered it. But if they're out there for an extended period of time, those could be stolen off your porch. So let the neighbor know, have them bring them into their house and take them in. Especially like when we're coming into the summer months where a lot of people take off for vacation, lots of people camping, moving, doing trips and stuff. And so to have somebody that can check in on your house and check on your place, but make sure your packages are removed. I talk about this never leave your messages on your door. That's more for college and dorm. A lot of them have whiteboards on their doors and they leave messages to each other. That's more for that because they're like, oh, I'll run to the store, I'll be back in 30 minutes. Don't telegraph your moves or what you're doing with your dorm room or your home in that. We talk about the strangers. When I was working up in Ogden, we had some kids going door to door and saying, hey, I just need to use your phone. I need this, blah, blah, blah. And what they were doing, or use your restroom. And what they would do is one would use the phone, one would go use the restroom, and then they'd go through their medicine cabinets and steal their medication and their pain meds. And they were people in their neighborhoods, and so they trusted them. But I always say, don't let them come in your home. Make the call. If they need to talk to somebody, make the call for them, especially with cell phones. You can be by the front door, talk to them through the door, through the peephole, and make those calls for them. Again, all of these are good tips and they're all part of the crime prevention through environmental design, CPTED efforts that we do here at South Salt Lake, but really law enforcement across the state is looking at these things. We talk about your house numbers. Can first responders, can medical and police and anybody that is responding see the house numbers? Some aren't flow right. You're thinking you're coming up at 2473 and you're actually at 2483, because of the house numbers, and it doesn't really, it's not as even as you think it would be. Have it in multiple places. Have it on your mailbox, have it on your curb, have it on your house. We always talk about taking pride in your property and clean up the junk around your house, because if you're taking pride in your property, it's they call it the broken window theory. And then a study was done about businesses, I think it's in downtown Detroit, it's been probably in the early 90s, late 80s, where they talked about the broken window theory, where if you're not taking pride in your property and you're having broken windows, then you're going to get more broken windows, because people see it's kind of like graffiti. We want graffiti cleaned up right away. We want broken windows to your property or to businesses cleaned up right away and replaced as soon as possible, because boarded up buildings attract unsavories that always seem to either tag or do additional damage to that property. Out here, I talk about, we get a lot of phishing scams, or they're calling from like your credit union or your bank. Your bank and your credit union won't call you, right? If there's an issue you're calling them and talking to them. That ICE number is in case of an emergency number. The thing that's a little bit challenging now is a lot of people have passcodes on their phones. And so unless you have your passcode to somebody else and they can get into it, it's sometimes a little challenging. Say there's a bad accident and we show up and we have your phone, we don't know who to call. If we had that in case of emergency number, we usually will call that next person on there. Don't give out your personal information. A lot of surveys, phone surveys, people call. I would say just thanks for calling, thanks for reaching out, but don't give them the time of day to give out all that information. I'm not sure where this was. I want to say New Jersey, but a female was walking and fell right into a manhole on her phone, walking, and fell right in by not paying attention and being aware of her surroundings. This is one of my favorite. We do this for social media and on our Facebook page, but we get a big response with this because you get those surveys on Facebook or Instagram, and those surveys want to, here, let me tell you if this is what your favorite color is or work name, and then you put all this stuff in there. This actually can be used against you and hack into your accounts. And if you do get hacked, obviously you want to call us, but there is ic3.gov. It's through the FBI, that they're the ones that do a lot with on these types of cases. If you see something, we talk about this. We did this obviously after 9/11. It was like, if you see something, say something. That's the same thing we're saying here. If you see a crime in progress, don't intervene. You can intervene. Again, it's one of those choices. What if? What do I do? This girl actually tried to intervene and got hit across the nose. Call 911 and give us the information, be a good witness. We're asking you to give us the details so we can come in and investigate it and get the resources to the victims that need to have it. When we are talking about, we're at 6 o'clock. Terry, we can be done. Are you good?
If anyone needs to drop off, let them. You're amazing. We want you.
Okay. So if you're confronted, try, it's hard as heck to stay calm, right? It's hard as heck. You just need to take a couple deep breaths, focus, see what you need to know, try and become the best witness you can for the police department. And these are all things that we're going to ask when we come to a scene. For us, we look at different types of resistance: physical, passive, and active aggression. All of these things, and when you're looking at it, what type of person are you? Where are you going to be in this spectrum? What are you going to do? And I think it's that what if, what can you do yourself and determine what you want to do in these types of cases. We do know, as a disruptor, even no or stop changes that dynamic, and they some will just leave. They're startled. They want you to be timid. They want you to be passive. And so if you start asserting yourself and saying some things, some of them will deter. Your goal in those types of scenarios is to survive. You need to know, like when we just do training here, they're telling you, yeah, you can do some ground fighting or you can do this, but you're going to get a hit. You're going to get hit. And so are you mentally prepared if you are going to be this assertive? What can happen to you? I always, as a crisis negotiator, if you are taken hostage or you taking in a situation, you want to totally personalize yourself, where you want to talk about your family. You want to talk about yourself as an individual, talk about your kids. And there is no shame in any of the bottom three, because a lot of them don't like messy. If you're going to fight, be committed. You need to find an opening. And when you create an opening in some of that circumstance, then you need to take the advantage of it. Your elbows and your knees are your hardest. Use those right here, up there. You can do this, hands, noses are sensitive. Obviously, doing whatever you can do, because you're in the fight, you're fighting for your survival type stuff. So you need to do whatever you need to do in that scenario. I always, if something happened, you don't want to go from point A to point B. You want to get out of where you're at point A. But if you do move from point A to point B, spit, pee, defecate, any of those things to leave your DNA at one scene versus another scene. Fingernail clippings, pull out some of your hair at the root. All those types of things help get your DNA from point A to a secondary location. I don't really want to get into biology, but here we are. We looked at the stats. Predominantly, our aggressors are male. I could go into a whole thing about them, and The Power of Awareness is a book that I recommend by Dan Schilling. That's a great book to review, but it talks a little bit about those things where going toe to toe with a male, most of us are not going to survive that. We gotta have some other types of skills to assist us in that, to evade or escape. Obviously, we talk about scream, run, spray if you have pepper spray, hit and run, all those things. All great things to try and do if you're trying to escape a scenario. I always say run in a zigzag. If there's a weapon held to you, you may get shot, keep running. Okay, most of those shots are not fatal. You look at scenarios where women have escaped and they've ran, they may get shot in the leg, they may even get shot in the stomach, but if they continue to get to an open area, to get where there's support or people, our medical teams and our trauma centers around here are phenomenal. And even if you were hit, have that mental mindset that you're going to survive and you're going to make this happen and you're going to get help and you're going to get yourself to safety. You have to have the mindset. And it may take you a minute to get there. Most of us don't think about this. Most of us don't think that this can happen to us. But the mindset, it might take those couple of few breaths. And then you got to say, I'm surviving this. I've got to figure out, I need to calm me down and I need to figure out what I'm going to do. What's my course of action? I hope this never happens to you. I hope you are never victimized in this manner. But if you are, as soon as you're safe, call the police. Don't shower, don't clean up. Don't do any of that before an officer responds to you. Save any clothing, bedding, outer jackets, anything. I know it is going to be super hard to regain your composure. These cases are challenging. They're challenging for the investigators, but they're also challenging for the victims that have been through an attack. But we are here to help you, and we'll help you through the process. South Salt Lake and anywhere around here, the victim advocates is a big thing. We have a victim advocate supervisor that responds out on these critical calls, and there is so many resources out there now that can help victims of crime. And you know, these are kind of the worst case, like when I'm talking to you, but even if you're a crime of an assault, you know, and we have resources and we have victim advocates to help with the process and help you guide you through the criminal justice process. I get why I have counseled plenty of young college students and women in general, and I get why they don't report, right? I understand why they don't report. They don't want to go through the criminal justice process. They don't want to have to deal with their abuser. They don't choose to want to go through the court process. I worked a rape case with 2 Weber State basketball players in my career, and I really it was a hard case, and it was kind of going to be a hard, and I was so proud of the victim for coming forward and sharing. It was such a traumatic situation for her. But there was a second victim that came forward and reported that. And so when you report that type of criminal activity, sometimes there's patterns to that. And it helps police piece together multiple cases, and multiple cases in the prosecution standpoint are really, I won't say easier to prosecute, but they're more willing to prosecute those type when there's stuff like this, and you're going to prevent it from happening to somebody else. And that's what I try and tell victims is like, look at how awful this has been for you, but if you report it, you may be able to prevent this from happening to somebody else. Yes, we all like donuts. Even the fitness ones, they may lie and say that they don't, but this was my funny, because this is a serious subject and this is intense. And I do like to bring humor. Sometimes it may not be appropriate, but this is my attempt at humor. But I did not want to trigger anybody. And if anybody wants to talk offline, I'm here to support and help you. And I am done, and I'll leave you with that.
You are amazing. I think
Well,
we
thank
should
you.
open it up for questions, because I learned a lot about you and I didn't actually know. And there's a lot of stuff that you said that's kind of resonated. Gary, do you have a question? Like maybe anyone have
It looks
questions?
like Jennifer does. Jennifer has a question.
Jennifer.
Oh, I was clapping. That was
Oh,
my
okay.
reaction, clapping. No,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was great.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for this presentation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I am going to recommend a couple books. Again, The Power of Awareness. There is another one that's called The Gift of Fear. I will say I like The Power of Awareness better because it has like an insert in the back that kind of gives you some more crime prevention techniques and what to do. I do like The Gift of Fear because it helps you understand your intuition and why you may feel certain things. But those are, I just don't want anyone to be victimized.
Well, awesome, Danielle. It's over a cup of coffee or whatever. It would be fun to learn a whole lot more detail about when you
We
were
need to get together.
when you were a decoy.
Yeah, that was,
And that sting operation, I guess that was a sting operation, what you call it, right?
yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. I worked undercover on that detail. And I think Jason Brett Higgins is still at the point of the mountain. And so, but those are one of those cases that are intense.
Were you involved in anything while you were a decoy?
No, which was, I mean, good and bad.
Right.
I mean, because he was still a perpetrator. He still perpetrated on several women in the Ogden community, and just heartbreaking. And we worked that case, and the detectives on it, FBI agent John Yuta and Detective Rick Childress were really, I was young in my career. They were really instrumental in supporting me and helping me kind of work with them on those cases because they were the key investigators and I learned a lot and those two individuals were very impactful and they work a lot of great cases, and they do a lot of good work to get a lot of bad people in jail.
And so do you, and you're amazing. And we're grateful for your information and you sharing today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So glad you arrived in South Salt Lake, Danielle.